Good to see you again.
Well, look, yesterday we had our e-commerce loss prevention meeting, and we were focusing on the sort of marketplaces, both the sort of old, established ones, the sort of
Mm.
Amazons and eBays and Facebooks to a certain extent, and then the new ones, the TikToks, etc. And we're looking at the sort of loss prevention challenges in these when you're selling on these marketplaces. We had a retailer who had maybe 50% of their business going through marketplace operations, and she was sharing some of the challenges that she was facing, some of the opportunities perhaps for improvements. Um, it was a really interesting session. We had about 30 people there, 30 retailers. What were some of your takeaways that other retailers might want to benefit from?
Yes, it was interesting because we've spent a lot of our sessions, haven't we, around e-commerce, just thinking about the retailers that supply directly to their customers,
Yes.
and trying to understand the problems that they face, but also some of the opportunities they have around the data that they can collect around their customers to help them try and manage the problems that they're experiencing through e-commerce. And so this was a really interesting, different lens, wasn't it, for us to think
Yeah.
about where the retailer is working through a third party to get to their customers. And so the retailer was, it was a very frank discussion, wasn't it, about some of the challenges that this then introduced into trying to manage the problems of loss associated with their e-commerce problems. And I think I took away sort of, there were three things that really struck me around this. One was actually they really have much fewer data points about their customers than those who supply directly to their customers. So the marketplace provider limited their vision of what their customers were, and that therefore then began to reduce their opportunities for trying to, in one way, stop those who are high risk. They simply couldn't collect the data points as much as they might want to try and limit their exposure to those who are, what could be regarded as very regular fraudsters and taking opportunities in that way. Secondly, it was interesting to hear about some of the, the challenges of being really at the mercy of the marketplace's policies and practices around how they particularly deal with refunds and the payment of refunds. And so, whilst you want to have control over this, because ultimately, these are your products that you want to get to the customers and vice versa coming backwards, the marketplace provider can begin to impose their policies and practices that can really affect your ability to manage that process well. And they felt really quite exposed sometimes when the marketplace provider was saying, yeah, we'll give you a refund because that's our policy. And that was actually exposing the retailer to a lot more fraud because the customers were, really taking liberties because of the exposure that they were getting through that market provider. So that was something that was I thought was very interesting as well, and another challenge. And then, I think the other thing was the challenges of making contact and having a link with the marketplace. So who can I talk to within the marketplace to talk through some of these issues that we're experiencing? We know that some of these marketplace providers are huge organisations, and it can be very difficult to have a human contact there. And I think it was refreshing to hear the retailer talking through how they had to work through trying to get that link to it to begin to have an opportunity to explain what was going on for them around these issues of fraud. So it was a really interesting lens, wasn't it, to think through e-commerce that perhaps we haven't had before.
Yeah, I mean, I get you got a certain sense that marketplace providers almost have a bit of a blind spot to this,
Mm.
um, to possible fraud, to possible risk. And we did hear, some examples of, that sort of blind spot being played out and being recounted by one of the presenters, or a couple of the presenters, in fact, on this particular piece. And but it did also show the power of engagement. I think one of the retailers sort of shared a story about the sort of someone who's ordered a £3,000 Microsoft laptop or something, and said it never came or whatever, whatever, and then did it again, and it never
Yeah.
came, and then eventually they did get in contact with the marketplace, and did actually get a successful reduction.
Yeah.
And refund. So it can be done, but you're right. It was
It
very,
is,
very difficult.
it's one of those interesting ones, isn't it? Which is, we've talked in another, in another setting around, do retailers want to go to a pay on scan approach to dealing with the problem of loss, where you say, well, we'll only pay the manufacturer of this product when we sell the product, and if we lose it, that's their problem because we'll only pay them on scan. And it felt a little bit like this with the marketplace, which is, if they give a refund, it's not costing them anything, is it? Because it's the retailer who's paying for the refund, not the marketplace provider. And so there's like this almost sense of, yeah, we'll do this because it makes our
Moral
customers feel
hazard, I think
great.
you're.
Moral hazard is the term we would use, which is for the marketplace. They can make very happy customers, can't they? Because we have a really loose, easygoing refund policy, but they're not picking up the bill. It's the poor old retailer who's picking up the bill. So there's this sense of moral hazard that you can have around this. And for the retailer, it's trying to get that across to the marketplace provider, saying it's great that you want your customers to have a good experience, but we're also, part of this as well. And you need to think about the consequences for us as well as the consequence for customers. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, and you can see how marketplaces could have a gap in their capability and their knowledge in this space. So yeah, that was really fascinating. We also got talking about the Wild West, didn't we? And some of these new platforms, marketplace
Yes.
platforms, and I think TikTok was called out as one
Yes.
example. I mean, extraordinary.
Yes. It's, these companies will, can see the potential profit. They've got such a huge user base, haven't they? And they say, well, let's just open up a marketplace and we can take a percentage of this, and it'll all be fantastic. But actually, as we've learned from others, you need a whole infrastructure behind this to make sure that people, don't just do wholesale fraud. And that one retailer described, I forget what the number was, Carl. I'm sure you can remind me of this, but the number
30%.
30% of all their
30%.
orders were ending up being fraudulent, and that's just an enormous risk, but you can see, again, it's this sense of moral hazard that for TikTok, we're not losing through fraud. We're offering exciting new proposition for all our customers, and we'll get somebody else to pick up the tab for the fraud that then ensues.
Yeah, yeah. Who knew that it would never get there? Yeah. So
What could possibly go wrong,
yes. Oh, look, that's been fantastic. Thank you so much. It was a really exciting, actually, session, and I think we'll have to repeat that in 2025. So, and we even had our friends from the academics down in Australia join us as well. So that's how good it was. But thank you, Adrian, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, cheers, Colin. Bye bye.
Bye.